Hello students, hope you all are doing good. Today we will be continuing with our chapter number 5 of history, that is crafts and industries. Let's focus on our first heading without wasting much of our time. So our first heading is industries in the pre-British period. So students, here it is told that like before British came into India, like industries of Indian people, like they used to produce fine quality of cotton, silk, precious stones, means everything in a good quantity and that too on a large scale. And kings and kingdoms were also flourished with such kind of good artifacts and good ornaments that were on a large scale, and they had a very good demand in western markets. Under the patronage, means under the rulership of rulers and kings, a large variety of goods were produced in the royal karkhanas or workshops. Means such factories used to produce a large number of products and goods so that people can use them, and that too, and the products that were produced in India and by Indian people, they were of very good quality and they were cheap also, like cotton, silk and precious stones were in great demand and they were very good. And European traders also made a huge profit by selling Indian goods in the European markets. Means they used to take goods from Indian market and they used to sell it in Europe. European powers such as the British, the French, and the Portuguese fought with each other to establish their monopoly over the lucrative trade with India. Means they all wanted to set up their like industries in India, and that's why they had to fight with each other. However, the situation changed after the इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन इन ब्रिटेन, और कुछ जो कंडीशन और सिचुएशन थी वो इंडस्ट्रियल रेवोल्यूशन के बाद चेंज हो गई ब्रिटेन में. So let's continue with our very next heading, that is industrial revolution. Pay attention, it's an important heading. The Industrial Revolution in Britain saw the establishment of various industries in Britain and the large scale production of factory made goods. मतलब इंडस्ट्रियल रिवॉल्यूशन जब ब्रिटेन में स्टार्ट हुआ तो उसमें बहुत सारे फैक्ट्रीज इस्टेब्लिश हुए, जिसकी वजह से काफ़ी ज़्यादा लार्ज स्केल प्रोडक्शन हुआ जो फैक्ट्री में गुड्स बनते थे. मतलब instead of using handmade goods, they started making and preparing factory made goods. टेक्सटाइल एंड आयरन एंड स्टील इंडस्ट्रीज प्लेड एन इंपॉर्टेंट रोल इन द इंडस्ट्रियल रिवॉल्यूशन. मतलब ये जो इंडस्ट्रीज थी इन्होंने एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट रोल प्ले किया इंडस्ट्रियल रिवॉल्यूशन को और आगे बढ़ाने में. नाउ ब्रिटेन नीडेड टू फाइंड मार्केट्स. जब उनके पास प्रोडक्ट्स बन गए थे तो अब उसको बेचने के लिए भी दे वर इन नीड ऑफ अ पर्टिकुलर पार्ट फ्रॉम वेयर एंड वेयर actually they can sell those goods that they have prepared. So they actually contacted India, and this is how a relation between Britain and India changed, where Britain became a major exporter and India became a major importer. Means one was giving and another one was taking, and this is how, like, when Britain started giving and exporting products, then the people of India started buying and purchasing products from Britain. And this is how the major the people, those who had factories and industries in India, they used to produce a product, they lost their jobs and their business, and this is how like industrial revolution affected Indian people. Now let's bounce on our next heading, that is Indian textiles in the world market. Means what importance Indian textiles were holding in the world market. So in the world market, Indian textiles were known for the quality and fine craftsmanship. Means जो बहुत बारीकी के लिए जाने जाते थे. Like we still buy chicken curry cloths, we still profound these these small details of such architects and monuments that we see, and such architects and designs that they actually make in clothes. So this is what actually India has been known for from last so many years and from centuries. In the world, Indian textiles were known for their quality and craftsmanship. Indian textiles were exported to Southeast Asia, Java, Sumatra, and Penang, and also to Central and West Asia. Lucknow, Agra, Benares, Ahmedabad, Multan, Dhaka, and Surat were major centers of textile production in India. Means in these locations were the locations where actually textile production was at its peak, and was most of the time they used to produce such products. Now, in Britain, calico and muslin were in huge demand. These are the quality of the clothes. And from the 16th century, the European traders took Indian textiles to the European markets, where they became very popular. Means European traders used to come to India and they used to take Indian products to their own country, that is Europe, and there they used to sell, where actually Indian textiles were very, very popular. The East India Company traders bought Indian textiles at a very low price. Means the East India Company used to buy textiles of Indian people at a very, very low price, and they used to sell the same good in European markets at a very high price, and used to earn a lot of profit from the same product. However, post-industrial revolution means the period just after industrial revolution, the English textile industry demanded a ban on the import of Indian textiles. Means the English textile industry means textile industries of Britain demanded a ban of import of Indian textile because they were not earning good, because the traders used to buy product from India, but they were like exporting the goods to other countries. But so who was making profit? The traders, and not the business owners of textile industries of English countries and British countries. And hence, keeping the interest of the English textile industry owners in mind, the British government passed the Calico Act in 1720, which banned the use of printed cotton as textile, that is chintz, in England. And as per the Calico Act of 1720, use of printed cotton textile was banned in England. Just mark the dates, it's important. The focus shifted to importing raw materials from India and exporting machine-based goods to the Indian market. Means they used to export goods from India, and machine-made goods to the Indian market was being sold over there. The goods coming from England were free of custom duties, devoid of any protective laws. The Indian textile industry suffered huge losses. Means the good that were coming from England had to pay no taxes, whereas good which were exported from India to other countries had to pay a lot of taxes so as to give a particular brief. And the Charter Act of 1813 opened the Indian market to non-East India Company traders as well. Means till the date before 1813, like the British was the goods was sold to Britishers only. But now after 1813, after Charter Act of 1813, the goods were sold to other countries as well. So more and more machine-based goods entered the Indian markets, and hence loss was. And because of this, Indian markets and Indian marketers had to face a lot of loss. Let's bounce on our next heading, that is drain of wealth. The British devised a systematic strategy to drain India's wealth. मतलब उन्होंने एक ऐसी स्ट्रेटजी बना रखी थी जिसकी वजह से इंडिया का जो वेल्थ था, जो जिसकी वजह से इंडिया जानी जाती थी, जो पैसा था वो ड्रेन मतलब बहुत तेज़ी से मतलब बाहर की तरफ जा रहा था और इंडिया के लोग गरीब हो रहे थे. The nationalist leader Dadabhai Naoroji was the first to point out how the Indian wealth was being drained off to Britain without any returns. Means he was the one to tell that how come Indians are selling their goods and giving and the goods to the European traders, but not in return. They are not getting anything, because of which Indian traders were they were like being moving towards the poverty line. He believed that the British oppressive policies drained the wealth of India and led to the impoverishment of the Indian industries. Means he knew that the behind the impoverishment of these traders and businessmen was the deal of Britishers, and the theory of economic drain indicated the exploitative character of the British rule. और उन्होंने बताया कि कैसे ब्रिटिशर्स की रूल की वजह से ही उनकी ये सारी प्रॉब्लम्स अराइज हो रही हैं. Now next heading, that is industrial growth in the 20th century. Due to the efforts of some visionaries, Indian industries witnessed a slow revival in the second half of the 19th century. Means जो कुछ विजनरीज थे, जो बहुत दूर की सोच सकते थे, उनकी मदद से जो इंडस्ट्रीज़ थी जो इंडिया में, उन्होंने थोड़ा सा अपने आप को संभाला 19th सेंचुरी के सेकेंड हाफ के बाद. मेनली टू काइंड्स ऑफ इंडस्ट्रीज डेवलप्ड, प्लांटेशन इंडस्ट्रीज एंड मशीन बेस्ड इंडस्ट्री. और दो टाइप की इंडस्ट्री सेटअप हुई, पहला प्लांटेशन इंडस्ट्री एंड सेकेंड वन इज मशीन बेस्ड इंडस्ट्री. Let's know in detail about what were plantation industries and what were machine based industry. Plantation industries. Vast stretches of land on which crops such as tea, coffee and rubber were grown were known as plantations. Means a kind in an area where such kind of crops like rubber, tea, coffee were grown were known as plantations. There was a huge demand for these goods in the European markets. Means European people used to use these people in a very good and a vast demands, which gave an impetus to the plantation industry, which gave an importance to the plantation industry. However, most of these plantations were owned by the British. Means the owner of these plantations were Britishers. The laborers who worked in these plantations were subjected to much oppressions. Means they were forced to work in these plantations. During this period, tea plantations were established in various parts of Assam, Bengal, South India, Darjeeling, as you might have heard about, and several coffee plantations were also set up in different parts of India. Means during this time, tea plantation and coffee plantation establishment in various parts of India took place just because of Britishers, among which Assam and Darjeeling were mostly known because of it. Now, let's know about machine-based industries. From the beginning of the 19th century, Bombay, that is present day Mumbai, emerged as an important trading center. Means from the beginning of the 19th century, Bombay emerged as a most important trading center. Means this was the place from where trading used to take place. The first cotton mill was established in Bombay in 1854. The first industry, cotton mill industry, was set up in Bombay in 1854. Mark the date, it's important. By 1900, around 84 mills started operating from Bombay. By 1900, around 84 mills started operating. 84 mills were set up so that they can operate. Most of these mills were owned by Parsi and Gujarati businessmen who earned money by trading with China. And they used to earn money by trading with China. In 1861, a cotton mill was established in Ahmedabad, and in 1862, another cotton mill was set up in Kanpur. These two were the time periods in which two mills were set up in Ahmedabad and Kanpur. These cotton mills created a huge demand for jobs, means a good number of Indian people got vacancies and got admitted in there and got recruitments in these industries where they could work, and people from villages flooded to the cities to work in these mills. This was the time period when actually a lot of urbanization took place, means when people moved from rural areas to urban areas. In the initial years, means in the starting years, Indian textile industry faced many challenges. A good number of challenges took place, and in most of the countries, the infant industry was protected by the government by imposing heavy import duties. The colonial government in India refused to protect the Indian industry, and in the very starting, like the coming industry, means the setting up the industries which just came into market had to pay a lot of taxes for the important and for the import and export of their goods and raw materials. And the colonial government of in India, that is Britishers, refused to protect the Indian industry. उन्होंने मना कर दिया था कि वो इंडियन इंडस्ट्रीज को प्रोटेक्ट नहीं करेंगे. The most important phase in the growth of the Indian industry came during the First World War, that is from 1914 to 1918. Remember the date, the First World War took place in between 1914 to 1918. And this was a time period when the growth of the Indian industry took place, when the imports from Britain declined and the colonial government encouraged the Indian industry to produce the materials which they needed in war. And Britain, the import from Britain and the export from India was stopped, and colonial government of India told Indian people and Indian industries that you have to produce a good which can be used by our soldiers in market. And this is how Indian people got that particular position from where they stood up. So students, now let's know about iron and steel industry. Remarkable progress was made in the field of metallurgy. What is metallurgy? Science of metals and the one who deal with metallic things. The excellent quality of the sword of the Tipu Sultan bears testimony to the brilliant craftsmanship. Means the one who made his sword is actually remembered just because of the metals and just because of the details that he added. The hard and sharp edge of the sword could tear apart metal armors. Metal armors means the huge wall of made up of metals. High carbon steel called woods produced in South India was used for making this sword, and high carbon steel was used, which was also known as woods. And this is also produced in South India, and this was produced and was used to make this sword. Now, decline in iron smelting. Iron smelting in India was very common till the end of the 19th century. It was very common, means usage of iron. Most of the districts in Bihar and central India had smelters who used local deposits of iron ores to produce utensils and tools of daily use. What is smelting? When you shape something of iron and metal and give it a new look. And it was mostly used in Bihar and central India. However, implementation of the colonial forest laws drastically affected the business of iron smelting. Means some laws were there because of which, like, smelters were like thrown out of their area and they were not told, and they were restricted to go to that place where iron ore were present. The iron smelters could not collect wood from the forest which they used as charcoal to start their furnaces, because like they needed something to blow up a fire, because without wood they were not having any other facilities because so as to blow the fire. And which they used to as charcoal they start furnace. They could not extract ores after the implementation of the forest laws, because as I told you that like they were restricted to go to the ores where they used to collect iron and metals. In some areas, the iron smelters were permitted to collect wood and extract iron ores, but in some areas, they were told and they were not restricted that they cannot go. They were allowed that they can go and they can collect wood and they can even extract ores, iron from the ores. But the heavy duty on furnace discouraged them. But they had a term that if they are producing smelting, then for that they will have to give high taxes to the ones who has allowed them to do so. By the middle of the 19th century, the colonial government started importing iron and steel from Britain. Means like importing iron and steel from Britain took place by the middle of 19th century, and now iron smiths used imported iron to produce materials for daily use. And by the beginning of the 20th century, iron smiths faced new challenges in the form of a competition which came from the iron industry established in India. Like earlier, they were not allowed to go to the ores, and some were allowed, then they had to pay heavy taxes. And now, if they got when they got settled, then industries set up in India gave them a good competition that now either they will be selling the goods or the smiths and the industries will be selling the goods. So this was a great challenge for them. Now let's know about Tata Iron and Steel Industry. The Tata Iron and Steel Industry was set up in 1907 on the banks of the Subarnarekha River at a place called Sakchi, later renamed as Jamshedpur. Mark the date and mark the place because it is one of the most important questions of history. This factory started production in the year 1912. The first production of this factory took place in 1912. During First World War, Tata Iron and Steel Company, that is known as TISCO, received a demand from the British government to help with the development of the Indian railways and to produce war materials. Means Britishers hired Tata Steel, that is TISCO, to import and to make and develop some materials that can be used in war and that can be used in Indian railways as well. And by 1919, the colonial government bought up to 19% of the TISCO, the total steel produced by TISCO. Gradually, the industrial classes in India became very prominent. Eventually, they played a very important role in the freedom struggle. And gradually, in the colonial government of India brought up some change, and they actually helped TISCO so as to establish some basic amenities. And gradually the industrial class in India became very prominent, means very important, and eventually they played a very important role in the freedom struggle. And they not even colonial government but also TISCO played a very important role in freedom struggle. So this is how the story ended over here. And also pay attention on this case study that is of textiles, so you can find something usual and something valuable in this. Pay attention and find something valuable and underline and highlight the words that you find usable. Thank you. Students, this was all about crafts and industries. Thank you for paying attention, and for any problem and queries you can access internet and book, and you can find those details, and you can pen down your queries and you can ask me later when schools will open. Till the time, study well, take care and stay safe. Thank you so much.